They say time heals all wounds, but some wounds don't bleed. They sink, silent and suffocating, into the shadows of memory. For years, something crept through the attic above her, never loud, just a whisper of presence, a breath of dread. Each night she was stirred from sleep, not by sound, but by scent, eerie blend of damp jungle soil and lingering gunpowder. It clung to the air like a ghost. Whatever haunted her home didn't rattle chains or slam doors. It brought silence. She believed it had come to hunt her, night after night.
Beverly wore her ego like armor. Each morning, she dressed herself in confidence so sharp it could cut steel. At work, she was a force, unyielding, intimidating, and impossible to ignore. Some called her a superwoman. Others, especially her employees, saw her as a storm best avoided. But when the day faded and the mask came off, Beverly was something else entirely. At night, her ego hung silently in the closet, waiting for tomorrow. She slept with one eye open and the other restless. Her body lay still, but her senses remained alive, hyper-aware. She could hear the faintest crackle from the walls, the whisper of creaking floors, the subtle shift of air. Any sound, any movement, and her soul would cry out in silence, "Please, just find a way." Before the thought could settle, she would jolt awake, swallowed by the dark, breath heavy, chest rising in panic. She followed her ritual, wipe the sweat from her brow, whisper to God through trembling lips, "Please, I wish I could sleep." It had been decades since her trauma. She had vowed never to be a victim again, not of another's cruelty, nor of society's labels. She refused to be boxed into statistics or psychological diagnoses. Instead, she chose faith. God's word was her medicine, her therapy, her protection. She built a fortress around her spirit and walked in strength by day. But all she ever really wanted was to sleep through the night. "Practice makes perfect," she would say each evening like a prayer. And yet, something inside her remained fractured, unreachable. Certain emotions couldn't find their way through the cracks in her heart. And then, the attic. For years, she had ignored the faint noises above. But tonight, something was different. The sound wasn't a whisper, it was a rattle. Something shook the ceiling above her bed, the walls trembled with it. She froze, inhaled deeply, clutching her covers like a shield. "God, please protect me." And then, from beyond the walls and the silence, a whisper rode the wind and whispered back,
"You must trust God first. You've asked God for something, yet you don't believe that He has already given it to you."
Beverly stood for a few seconds and proceeded to walk in the bathroom to take her morning shower. As the water caressed her, she would remember what the words whispered. She spoke as though she was having a debate. "How can I not believe or trust everything that I asked for from God being blessed?" Then the whisper spoke.
"If that's so, then why are you hunted by what is in the attic? For years, you allow the fear of not knowing what lies in your attic awake you from your rest soaked in sweat."
Beverly wiped the steam from her mirror, irritated, no, agitated, that the whispers dared to challenge her faith in God. Her jaw tightened as she stared at her own reflection. The voice in the dark still echoed in her ears. A whisper slipped from her lips. "You're right." The wind replied softly. "It's not about being right. It's a message, not to fear." Her hands clenched the edge of the sink. "Fear?" she snapped. "How dare you? I may have said you were right, but fear does not control me." Suddenly, silence, heavy and consuming. She waited, But nothing came. Only the stillness and the sound of her own breath remained. The voice, the presence, gone. She was alone again, not in her home, but inside her thoughts. The next morning, she was dressed in her armor again, shoulders squared, heels sharp, and ego strapped tight. Throughout the day, Beverly allowed that ego to guide her every move, shielding her from emotion and vulnerability. It fueled her responses, defined her tone, and shaped how she navigated her towering expectations. At work, challenges didn't intimidate her. They fueled her. But today, something stirred inside. By the time the afternoon conference meeting began, Beverly had made a quiet decision. The whispers, both from within and from her staff, had been circling long enough. She stood before her team, spine straight and gaze fierce. Her eyes swept the room, scanning each face like a detective searching for a thief, someone who had stolen something from her, something personal, something sacred. Then she spoke. Her voice was steady, yet softer than usual. "I'm aware," she said, "that I may come off as intimidating. I've heard the whispers about my attitude, about how success has made me less approachable." She paused, letting her words settle in the air. "I am driven, that's true, and I've worked hard to become the woman you see standing here. But if that drive has made anyone feel unseen, unheard, or devalued, then I want to address it here and now." She took a breath, releasing a weight she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. "Does anyone have something they'd like to say to me? I mean it."
Be prepared for a challenge I don't think you're ready for. However, you must face your fear.
She stood, waiting. However, no one seemed interested. Suddenly, someone from her team of managers courageously held his hand up and asked,
"Do you fear anything?"
Silence. A beat passed, then another. Most of the staff shifted uncomfortably, eyes avoiding hers. Beverly removed her glasses with deliberate slowness, letting her stare radiate from the frame of her face. The room held its breath. "Yes, God only," she said, firmly. He rose without fear.
"Then does God tell you to carry all that weight alone?"
His words struck her deeper than she expected. "Strength isn't about asking for help," she said. "It's about enduring."
"And endurance without rest. That's not strength, it's slow destruction."
Something cracked inside her. She immediately ended the meeting and rushed to her car. That night, she couldn't let his words go.
Maybe because you believe you must.
She lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Then came the sound, earlier than usual. A creak, a shuffle above her head. This time, instead of freezing, she rose. Barefoot, she climbed to the attic. The pull-string light swung as she tugged it, casting a yellow glow over boxes and dust. In the far corner, a cedar chest waited. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside, folded with military precision, was her brother's army blanket, still faintly scented with jungle soil, gunpowder, and safety. As she unfolded his blanket, she noticed it was his handwriting. Stitched within its fold, his prayer.
"Lord, keep me safe from the bullets tonight. But more than that, I ask you. Please touch my little sister's hidden pain. Heal her in the places no one sees. Hold her when I can't."
Beverly sank to the attic floor, clutching the blanket. The whisper came again, not from the walls this time, but from deep within.
It's not about fear. It's about letting yourself be held.
For the first time in decades, she didn't fight it. She wrapped herself in her brother's blanket, the coarse wool scratching her skin, but soothing her soul. Tears came, slow at first, then unstoppable. And when the tears were done, sleep finally came. The next morning, sunlight streamed across her bed. She sat at the edge, blanket still around her shoulders. For the first time in years, she felt rested. At work, her staff noticed. She was still confident, still strong, but her eyes carried warmth now. Mid-morning, she called them together. "I've learned," she said simply, "that strength isn't always about standing alone. Sometimes, it's about letting others stand with you." Her smile that day wasn't a defense, it was an opening. And somewhere deep inside, in answer to her brother's decades-old prayer, she knew, I'm healing now.
What no one knew was that the same blanket that shielded her brother from death in Vietnam had been more than fabric. It was faith woven in wool. He had carried it through a war half a world away, surviving the chaos and fire with prayers that reached far beyond himself. Every night under that blanket, he had whispered not only for his own safety, but for God to touch the hidden wounds of his little sister, to give her the strength to survive the war raging inside her. And now, decades later, that same blanket would shield her once more, not from bullets, but from the shadow of a memory that had waited far too long to be confronted. Wrapped in its weight, she was no longer just enduring, she was healing. Because sometimes the greatest battles are not fought on foreign soil, but within the heart, and sometimes the victory comes wrapped in love that never stopped praying for you. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Psalm 147:3.
Mixed Emotion is a collaboration of short stories solely created from imagination for entertainment purpose only. In the event these stories may reflect some incidents of reality of any person's life or situations of any institutions, is not intended but coincidental. Enjoy Mixed Emotion short stories by VG.